And good morning. Welcome again to today's Bible consideration. We just turned on the Clubhouse app, started the room in Clubhouse. And today we will be reading through the chapters of Genesis from 16 to 18. And once again, there's just so much. This is like so many points we can be touching on today, which are going to be like really interesting and learn life lessons and see how we can really learn to walk with God in the little things that we do every day. So without further ado, let's just open the Blue Letter Bible website and look for Genesis chapter 16 and dive right in today's Bible reading. And once again, if you join me on the Zoom call, if you join me on the Clubhouse room, you are very welcome to bring along your own Bible and volunteer for reading, suggest topics, ask questions, share what's coming up for you, share how you relate things going on in our day and time, in this world we live in the area where you are, the things you are seeing, relate them to what is happening in the Bible. The Bible has to become something that is alive and that you really, like when you start seeing the Bible and everything that's going on all around you, in your interactions with the people you are working with, in your interactions with your family members, in the interactions among the people you see around you, you really start to gain so much more understanding, so many more blessings, because what people deliberately do to harm you, you see how, though they intended it for evil, God uses it for good, and nothing that they do to harm you really can touch you, not the way they wanted it to. And so that's just like, it's sad. It's so sad when there's people that you really love and you cherish and maybe you think you're building a great relationship with, or people who have actually been nice to you and uplifting and helping you. And then you see it all comes crashing down. When things come crashing down, yes, sure, we've made our mistakes. At the same time, when things come crashing down, it's usually because we haven't been giving God something to bless, or whatever it was, something was tainting that situation and not doing things God's way, but doing things this world's way. So, as Jesus said, if you belong to the world would love that which is its own. If everything you are doing is always resulting in ongoing persecution, and you really are, now you're not lying to yourself, but you really are doing your best to live up to God's word, first for yourself and then with others, and things just keep crashing, or maybe you're not even so convinced in following God, but you try to do your best and things keep crashing. Well, everything is a spiritual. What is natural is spiritual. The word nater, natural, comes from ancient Egyptian, if I remember correctly, and it's nater al. spirit pertaining to. So everything that's happening on the physical plane, everything that is happening in our world is actually a reflection of what's going on in the spiritual world. So if you belong to God, there is no way that you can fit in this world. There is no way that this world is going to love you, not even if you dress up like you give up your sheep's clothing and you wear the clothing of a wolf. No way is this world going to accept you if you belong to God at your core. So you might as well belong to God 100%. And enough with that, let's move straight into the Bible reading. So, now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had a handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. That is, we're in Genesis 16, verse 1 here. Moving on to verse 2. And Sarai said unto Abram, behold now, Jehovah hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband, Abram, to be his wife. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. And Sarai said unto Abram, my wrong be upon thee. I have given my maid into thy bosom, and when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. Jehovah judge between me and thee. But Abram said unto Sarai, behold, thy maid is in thy hand. Do to her as it pleaseth thee. And when Sarai dealt hardly with her, she fled from her face. So let's just stop for a second. So Sarah is upset she doesn't have children. Children are the richness, the true richness of your family. If you have children, you are forwarding your family, and you can rely on them. Well, if you're doing parenting properly, you should be able to rely on them. Let's not get into the whole discourse of dysfunctional families where you get to rely on the children you exploit and you mistreated when you were raising them, but that's a whole different story. But practically not having children it's not simply seen as being something that's not okay. It really is like limiting to yourself, and especially in certain societies. If you don't have children, you're pretty much like end of the story with you, right? It's complicated. It is a complicated topic. Anyhow, women who cannot have children, women that, like they really can go through a lot of emotional turmoil, and we know all too well all the different ways we try to solve these issues. The thing is that for having offspring, that's one hurdle which is so difficult to understand, especially back in the day, right? But even down to today, like there's something about your bloodline. There is something about, yes, sure, as a mother, like you can really love an adopted child as much as if it were your own. I wouldn't dare to say more than if it were your own, because those are like silly semantics, okay? However, this thing of the bloodline, it is stronger with men than it is with women, apparently. So here, it's like we cannot adopt a child, they're saying, Like there's something with the bloodline with the blessing as well. This is stuff you can go and research for yourself. It's a lot to be delving into. So she's like kind of desperate for having a child, and she's willing to practice this thing of giving her handmaid, giving her servant as the concubine. And there are very many societies where there was this practice of having the concubine inside the family. And like, especially if you go and watch all of these period dramas, you see a lot of this going on. And sure enough, as soon as like, it's kind of weird, it's kind of weird for us in our society to understand this, how precisely because being fertile, precisely because of being able to bear children, it becomes a distinguishing factor between who is the rightful wife, who is to be considered the rightful wife of the patriarch, right? So Sarai, in her impatience, and also she took a step of arrogance. The step of arrogance was to substitute herself to God in providing the solution here. And sure enough, we have the big, huge problem of this servant becoming haughty, becoming rebellious, and thinking that she can supplant her mistress because she's pregnant. That would be Hagar, right? And the question is, like when Sarai says to Abram, my wrong is on you, because like Abram listened to her in this, and he didn't say, thank you for the suggestion, I don't think it's a good idea. Because especially like inside the Bible later on, we're going to see also in the law that Moses gives, that a woman can make decisions. However, if the father or the husband say, no, we're not going forward with this, no, I'm stopping you from this, like a woman can make a vow to God. And if God, she is still subject to either the father or the husband. So if the father or the husband say, no, you can't, I'm not going to let you go on with that, she is free of guilt. So practically the responsibility of the woman's decision still remains on the man. Like that's to understand the context here, all right? So Genesis 16, verse 7. And the angel of the Lord, of Jehovah, found her, who Hagar, by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence camest thou, and whither wilt thou go? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai. And the angel of Jehovah said unto her, return to thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hands. And the angel of Jehovah said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. And the angel of Jehovah said unto her, behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shalt call his name Ishmael, because Jehovah hath heard thy affliction. And he will be a wild man, and his hand will be against every man, and every man's against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. And she called the name of Jehovah that spake unto her, Thou, God, seest me. For she said, I also have here looked after him that seeth me. It's kind of difficult to understand that in like this is King James thing. Wherefore the well was called Beer Lahai Roi. Behold, it is between Kadesh and Beret. And Hagar bare Abram a son, and Abram called his son's name, which Hagar bare, Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old, that would be 86, when Hagar bare Ishmael to him. So practically we see Hagar, first she tries to supplant her mistress. And then when her mistress is recognized again as like Abram says, here, you are the queen in this situation. And Hagar, yeah, you can beat her up if you want to. She's your servant. I'm not going to deal with this. Which men always do when women start fighting between each other, don't they? Practically, it would be interesting, this is just an idea that came to me while I was going over this. It would be interesting to go and see how this whole scenario plays out when it comes to God's people. Who Abraham represents, who Sarai represents, who Hagar represents, and what these offsprings represent. The fact that Hagar first becomes haughty and then has to go and submit herself again to the original wife. Ooh, I'm seeing something so deep here, but I'm not going to be telling you because this is research you got to be doing on your own, and I ain't nobody's teacher, all right? But it's just like, whoa, mind blow situation. Moving forward, Genesis 16 to Genesis chapter 17. And we will be seeing another very interesting point here. And when Abram was 90 years old, just 1 second. Sorry, had to close the door. They were working out there and making a lot of chaos. So let's start reading again. Genesis 17, verse 1. And when Abram was 90 years old and 9, the Lord Jehovah appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am the Almighty God. Walk before me and be thou perfect. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made thee. And I will make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee and to thy seed after thee. Everlasting covenant. And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. And God said unto Abram, Thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore, thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. This is my covenant, which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man-child among you shall be circumcised. And ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man-child in your generations, he that is born in the house or bought with money of any stranger, which is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house and he that is bought with thy money must be circumcised, and my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised man child, whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenant. And God said unto Abraham, as for Sarai thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. And I will bless her and give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her. So, right. And then Abram fell upon his face and laughed, and said in his heart, shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah that is 90 years old bear? And Abraham said unto God, oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. And God said, Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. As for Ishmael, I have heard thee. Behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time in the next year. And he left off talking with him, and God went up from Abraham. So let's just stop 1 second here. So God again appears to Abraham and again gives him a little bit more, gives him a few more tiles to the big puzzle of this picture of the promise of what he's going to give him, of the huge inheritance he's going to be giving Abraham. There's a couple of things that really stood out to me here. Okay, for those who are not familiar with Bible, excuse me. For those of you who are not familiar with Bible, with the Bible, the fact that God changes the name from Abram to Abraham. Let's just have a look at what the name meant before and what it means afterwards. So before, I'm on the Blue Letter Bible, so I can click straight onto Strong's definition and see what it means. It means exalted father, original name of Abram. And just a second. Father of elevation would be the original meaning, according to Gesenius Hebrew Chaldee lexicon. But after, from this moment onwards, now that his name is Abraham, it becomes father of a multitude. So that's the first definition, the change. And instead we have Sarah. Sarah initially is Sarai, her name. And that was meaning princess originally. Let's see. It could mean my princess, nobility. All right. The name Sarai could mean princess or nobility. It comes from a root word It means rule, make prince, govern, is the root word it stems from, whereas Sarah becomes noblewoman. It's no longer princess, but noblewoman. Now that's kind of shallow, I would say, of the difference. I believe they used, I think it was Jehovah's Witnesses who said that the meaning of the name Sarah was someone who always picks fights, someone who is always on the lookout to be picking fights with other people, to have disputes with other people. Interesting. I didn't check it before this call, so I'm kind of stumped on that one right now, or maybe I'm just missing the proper link right now. Anyhow, the thing is here that God changes their name. Well, maybe princess as in spoiled princess, who knows? You can go and do your own research on that. The fact is that God gives both Abram and Sarah an H, this H which breathes life into their name and changes the purpose of their life completely. That is one thing. Let's talk about something really difficult to chew, especially if you're a man. The topic of the circumcision. Let's just consider a few points, and then you do your own research and you do your own talking with God about this. How long is forever? It's forever. And apart from how long is forever, who is part of this covenant? Part of this covenant is Abram, his generations after him, and who should be circumcised? Not only the people born in the house, but also the servants that are bought with money and become part of the house. He that is bought with your money must be circumcised. So wait a minute. He that is bought for a price must be circumcised. And who is sons of Abraham? Is not sons of Abraham everyone who puts faith in Jesus? There's plenty of scriptures for you to be jumping back and forth on about this topic, to be investigating more on. It would seem that here, Genesis 17:14, the uncircumcised man, the one who is not circumcised, his soul will be cut off from his people. He has broken the covenant. And in verse 13, it is an everlasting covenant. Now, God doesn't say, if God means to say until a certain time, he generally says until a certain time. When he means forever, everlasting, when he has that written down, he means it. So that's something like it's really hard for us. For me, there are certain parts of the Bible, certain things that are written there. It says forever. Oh my gosh, really? Couldn't this have been done away with, please? You know, when Jesus comes. But let's learn a lesson from Abraham right now, picking up where we left off in verse 23. And Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all that were born in his house, and all that were bought with his money, every male among the men of Abram's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin in the self same day as God had said unto him. So radical obedience, radical and immediate obedience. And this is something I'm personally struggling with myself. So if you're struggling with it, when you're struggling with something, it's because you know that you've got stuff that you need to be removing, because doing something for the God you love, your daddy, or the guy who you know is going to take care of everything, as we said yesterday, God is saying to us, it's my job to keep you safe. It's my job to keep you alive, to give you everlasting life. It's my job to take care of you in all of your needs. What is your job? Your job is to believe in me. What does believe in me mean? Do everything I say. Simple as that. So when we are struggling against that, there's that stuff that's a problem we have. We shouldn't be looking for the problem. Oh, but the Bible is wrong. The moment we say the Bible is wrong, we are so dead wrong. So radical obedience. I wrote that in the beginning of that's my title for this year, as it's radical obedience, learning radical obedience. So let's just finish off this chapter and move into the next. And feel free to comment, feel free to write me whatever you want, ask questions. If you'd like, we can do some extra research together. If the word of God is the word of God, 100%, not one iota, not one tittle will pass until everything else, until the world will not pass. What is that verse Jesus said? So if we can agree to just that and stop looking for loopholes to, wriggle our way out of it, that would be a great thing. Right, Genesis 17:24. And Abraham was 90 years old and 9 when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. Any age. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. In the selfsame day was Abraham circumcised, and Ishmael, his son. And all the men of his house, born in the house and bought with money of the stranger, were circumcised with him. Oh, by the way, one thing you want to be looking out for, the 12, where is it? The 12 princes that Ishmael will beget. We want to be looking out for that in the future Bible readings. Moving forward into chapter 18, the last chapter for today. And Jehovah appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed himself toward the ground and said, My Lord, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet and rest yourselves under the tree. And I will fetch a morsel of bread and comfort ye your hearts, after that ye shall pass on, for therefore ye are also come to your servant. And they said, So do as thou hast said. And Abram hasted to the tent unto Sarah and said, Make ready quick 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth. And Abram ran unto the herd and fetched a calf, tender and good, and gave it to a young man, and he hastened to dress it. And he took butter and milk and the calf which he had dressed and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat. So let's just stop for 1 second. What can we learn from Abraham here on Abram is sitting there in front of his tent, and he is watching. He's on the lookout to be hospitable to others. He's not worried about, oh, if they come, I'm gonna, oh gosh, if they come, I'm gonna have to give them something to eat. Oh gosh, if people pass this way, let's hide the cattle. Let's pretend we don't have too much so we don't have to give anything. He's like, he runs and he personally makes a feast for these three strangers. And he says, here it says that my Lord is written small. It's not written Jehovah. It's written my Lord. He's saying to them, he's being deferential towards these three strangers. And he probably doesn't know at this moment when he's seeing them that they are the angels of God. He probably doesn't even know this. He's just seeing, he just wants to, and he makes sure to give them the best he can and really make them feel at home and rest from. So when we are out and about, or when someone passes by, how do we behave? Do we try to be helpful to the full measure we can rather than within our limits? That's a really tricky Bible verse right there. Because if we are, regardless of how they show up, well, of course, there's always some boundaries, right? But still, if you are hospitable to others, you have no idea. Being hospitable from the heart means really taking care of that other person's feelings, taking care of that other person's needs, taking care of, like, making sure that that person is okay around you, and like even letting them space to vent if they are going through frustrations, for example, and not using their venting as an excuse to be denying them or to be bashing them further or making them wrong about whatever their problem might be. There's a whole lot to be said about what being hospitable to others looks like. So, and then the other point here is, so Abram is God's friend. And what does Abram offer these people to eat? Abram has God's law written in his heart. He knows what is clean and what is unclean. And he knows what it is okay to eat and what it is not okay to eat. So your dietary choice is completely yours. I'd be careful about bashing people who eat dairy and meat. So moving forward, Genesis 18:9. And they said unto him, where is Sarah thy wife? And he said, behold, in the tent. And he said, that would be one of the angels, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door, which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age, and it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. That would be monthly. The monthly cycle was gone. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, after I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? And Jehovah said unto Abraham, wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I of a surety bear a child which I am old? Is anything too hard for Jehovah? At the time appointed, I will return unto thee according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Then Sarah denied, saying, I laughed not, for she was afraid. And he said, nay, but thou didst laugh. So let's just stop a moment here, because we saw that. Like, this is one thing that stood out for me. If anything else stands out to you, let me know. Or raise a hand and pop on. Oh, somebody came in and was gone. Sorry, raise your hand, make a noise, let me see ya. All right. So practically, we saw in the chapter before that Abraham left. And God did not reprimand her. And now Sarah laughs. And God does reprimand her. This is a reprimand. What is the difference? Well, you can laugh about something that is extremely serious. One problem I have, especially here in Italy, but probably also with lots of people around the world, when I interact with someone who is saying stuff that I agree with, who is saying stuff that I'm like, yes, finally someone that gets it, I will start laughing. It's a laughter of joyful agreement, and it always gets mistaken for not being serious. There's another kind of laughter, which is detrimental, which is when someone mocks, when someone laughs because they do not trust, they do not believe, when someone laughs about you, about what you said. It's the proverbial laugh with people, not at people. And personally, I'm seeing this going on here. Abraham is someone who is laughing with God, and Sarah is someone who is laughing at God, kind of, sort of. She's probably an overthinker. I don't know. It's just a thought that came up for me now. I might be wrong in this. If you have a different idea, let me know. Or let's discuss it in some like comments or whatever, or next time if you join. I'm very happy to talk about all points of view. So let us move forward one more time. Last tidbit here. Genesis 18:16. And the men rose up from thence and looked toward Sodom. And Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. And Jehovah said, shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do? Seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of Jehovah to do justice and judgment, that Jehovah may bring upon Abraham that which he hath spoken of him. And Jehovah said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their son is very grievous, I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it which is come unto me. If not, I will know. And the men turned their faces from thence and went toward Sodom, but Abraham stood yet before Jehovah. And Abraham drew near and said, wilt thou also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Peradventure, there be 50 righteous within the city. Wilt thou also destroy and not spare the place for the 50 righteous that are therein? That be far from thee to do after this matter, to slay the righteous with the wicked, and that the righteous should be as the wicked. That be far from thee. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? And Jehovah said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare all the place for their sakes. And Abram answered and said, behold now, I have taken upon me to speak unto Jehovah, which I am but dust and ashes. Peradventure, there shall lack 5 of the 50 righteous. Wilt thou destroy all the city for lack of 5? And he said, If I find there 40 and 5, I will not destroy it. And he spake to him yet again and said, Peradventure, there shall be 40 found there. And he said, I will not do it for 40's sake. And he said to him, O Lord, O Lord, be not angry, and I will speak. Peradventure there shall be 30 found there. And he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, Behold now, I have taken it upon me to speak unto Jehovah. Peradventure there shall be found 20 there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 20's sake. And he said, Oh, let not Jehovah be angry, and I will speak yet but this once. Peradventure 10 shall be found there. And God said, I will not destroy it for 10's sake. And Jehovah went his way as soon as he had left communing with Abraham. And Abraham returned unto his place. So let's just consider this last bit. I think it's Flavius Josephus who states that Abraham was teaching a lesson to God here. Really, seriously, no, please. Let's not do that. Let's not be that kind of arrogant and impatient, as if God doesn't know exactly what's going to happen when he says this to Abraham. Oftentimes, we've seen it time and again. We will see it all over the Bible. God will put people to the test. He will say, even to Moses, get out of the way. I'm going to destroy all these Israelites and I'm going to turn you into the only one blessed. And what does Moses do? He begs God to not do that. So God sometimes says he's going to do something absolutely horrible just to see if you will really stick with him and if you really know who he is or not. And that is what Abraham says. He says that God cannot, like the judge, he says, you are the judge of the whole world. You will never do something that is wrong. So the speaking to authority here, that's what came up for me, like this bargaining with God. Bargaining with God is bargaining for others, not bargaining for yourself, bargaining for the welfare of your enemies. Abraham knew exactly how horrible the people of Sodom were. And speaking to power here, just like Abraham did, like underlining, instead of saying, oh God, you would be a horrible person if you did that, he's saying, that's not part of your character to be this kind of person. It's not part of your character to do wicked. It's not part of your character to destroy the good along with the wicked. So Abraham really knew God's character. Last thing that I just saw glancing through here again was the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great because their sin is very grievous. That is verses 20 and 21. I will go down now and see whether they have done all together according to the cry of it. So what would this cry be? For sure, the blood of the slain that comes up from the earth all around this area where there's been people who have been abused, mistreated, killed. There is no justice. I think it is in the book of Jasher where we see the idea of justice of Sodom and Gomorrah, and compared to situations like workplace bullying that we are living in nowadays, compared to the hypocrisy of so many companies, the hypocrisy of so many people all over the world. Like the justice system is completely broken all over the world. You get away with injustice if you can prove that you belong to a certain minority, because according to these the ideology, it's systemic. Like just, I like talk about systemic racism. No, we're talking about systemic discrimination in the justice system. Unless you can prove that you are part of one of these minorities, you get no justice nowadays. And it is the abusers who are crying victims and getting protected from the people that they have abused. Just see all of these situations. We don't want to, let's not dive into the whole thing. But all of these child abuse, child trafficking, I mean, they can catch you on Facebook because they don't like what you say, and they cannot catch someone trafficking children. It's not that they can't, it's that they don't want to. It's obvious that they don't want to. It's obvious that they don't care. It's obvious that the ones who are fighting against, who are creating these huge movements against injustice are actually the very ones doing injustice. They're hiding behind this huge fan of, oh, I'm so righteous. They're hiding all of their wickedness behind that. And that's pretty much what the situation of Sodom and Gomorrah was back then. So God hears once the iniquity is complete. He's allowing for the situation to go on some more nowadays in our time, but fire and brimstone are on their way, just like back in the time of Sodom and Gomorrah. And so it's like, really, we need to be repenting and praying and confessing the sins and not allowing any more for this wickedness in our midst. And that means integrity starts with you. Integrity starts with you, with your family, and you can only work from the inside out. So that is something really important. It's useless that we go and cry injustice if we are the first ones who are not applying it in the little things. A very silly example. If you are, for example, a caregiver in someone's house, or you are a guest in someone's house, and you see a coin on the ground, what do? Do you pick it up and put it in your pocket, or do you pick it up and give it to the homeowner? I guess it starts with something as small as that. So our consideration for the day is, once again, through, and looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow again. I'm running late with downloading and uploading these to the YouTube channel, which I will try to do within today or tomorrow at the very most. Thank you for bearing with me. Comment, contact me, join in, volunteer to Bible read, bring in your insights, bring in your suggestions, bring in your questions, and see you soon. Ciao for now.